Hmm. Time to talk about Nightmare Before Christmas. Okay, so I will admit Nightmare Before Christmas is not my favorite Christmas movie, but it is my favorite Halloween movie. And yes, of course, the movie starts on Halloween and all of that fun stuff. So this video is obviously going to be about Nightmare Before Christmas. I got my Jack Skellington and my Sally Rag, or Ragdoll Sally, whichever one you want to refer to her as, back here. I've got some candy canes up, and I've pulled out the Christmas and a couple of Christmas orbs. I would have tinsel or garland, but unfortunately all that stuff is currently buried in our garage. And I have a stuffed Zero, but it is also buried in the garage, unfortunately. Otherwise, he would be up here with Jack and Sally. Nightmare Before Christmas. Or Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, whichever one you would refer to it as. It came out in 1993, so I was a year old. I'm pretty sure it probably came out right about on Halloween or so, or right around between Halloween and Christmas that year, but I didn't double check. And of course, it is a stop motion animation movie, and I just love that concept, and I'll get to that when I get to the development of the movie. So, the movie, of course, opens with the song This Is Halloween, which is, of course, just being sung by, all these different monsters and ghosts and vampires and witches and creatures that live under your bed and under your staircase and, live in sewers and climb out of fountains and like all this other fun stuff and everything. And it's all being sung by the residents of Halloweentown. But so we get all that fun bit there. That's all these different characters, and we get to see all these different characters and singing, and it's like, we like to scare, but we're not mean. And, we see all these like zombie looking things and, devils and demons and all this other fun stuff that we get to see and everything. And, I love the fact that the first image of the movie that we get, or the first kind of character that we do technically meet, is Jack Skellington, because he's the skeleton scarecrow pumpkin head thing that's on the sign that points you towards Halloweentown in the beginning of it, and I love that. And so we see all the characters singing, it's like, I'm the monster hiding under your bed. I have fingers for, snakes for fingers and spiders in my hair and, all this other fun stuff. And it's just this fun, great song. And, yesterday when I was watching it with my dad, I'm going, this is Halloween. This is, singing along with the whole thing. And, we get a view of a lot of the different characters. And, so we get that fun introduction there of, what this town is about. And this is the town of Halloween, where the spirit of Halloween comes from. And of course, we're introduced to Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King. I don't know why he's called the Pumpkin King, but he's like the kind of the leader of, Halloweentown, this like, very big, over the top main resident of Halloweentown. We still see the mayor, but we do see Jack, and he seems to be the main driving force of this town. That they all sing to the pumpkin song is kind of one of the lines in it, which is a reference to Jack, I'm assuming. And of course, the whole performance, chapter as a skeleton, in the outfit, sets himself on fire, and then, comes out of a gooey well thing, and, is his skeleton king self and everything. And we get all of that. And, Jack is, very, he's, everybody's happy about the way that the song went and everything, and the way that their performance went and everything. The mayor's like, this was our best Halloween yet, definitely the scariest, and, all that fun stuff. And, we see Jack, and he's, getting all these compliments from all of the different characters, and, it's like, oh, you make skin crawl and wounds ooze, Jack. I'm like, that's a compliment from there, which I can understand. And, all this stuff. And we see this one character who is, of course, Ragdoll Sally, or Sally, who is a creation by Dr. It's not Frankenstein, it's like Frankenstein or something like that, but the doctor. And he created her, and she's kind of this amalgamation of parts stuffed together with leaves, is what she's in, what's inside of her. And she is his creation, and she's this reference to, of course, Frankenstein. And I love that. And he is very protective of her, and well, more controlling than protective, because she's like his servant type thing. Because but yeah, and like she snuck out because she like gave him like nightshade that like put him to sleep, and then she snuck out to go and watch all of this. And he tries to stop her from running off again, and it rips off one of her arms, which doesn't really cause her any pain. I'm assuming she can't really feel pain, which is kind of an interesting concept to go with that. But I don't know if she can feel pain, or even if she does feel pain, it subsides very quickly. We never get an answer of that one, but she runs off, and then we see Jack going off, and he's like, bowing him, kind of like, yeah, this was great. I gotta go. And he like sneaks away from everyone. And then, of course, we kind of get the song Jack Laments or So, which is where we see him roaming through this graveyard, and we get to meet his dog Zero and everything. And he's just so bored and tired of the same routine day after day, year after year, in regards to, planning Halloween. Like as soon as one Halloween's finished, they start working on the next one, and, all this other stuff. And he's just bored because he's kind of lost his, lust for life, his zeal and such. He's like roaming through the, graveyard. And, so we get the great songs there, and we get the great image of him, on top of the curly hill with the moon in the background lighting him. And Sally's in the graveyard too, and she of course hears him singing, and she kind of understands this, being this kind of, she's been trapped from by the doctor for however long, because he thinks she's too fragile and everything. And he's and she has run away multiple times already, snuck away because she wants to go and see things outside, and he's just very possessive and controlling of her, doing it under the guise of keeping her safe, of course, but he's very possessive and controlling. And what ends up happening is, of course, Jack wanders off with Zero, and Sally has to wander back home. And Jack's wandering off in the direction of just wherever. He's like wandering aimlessly all night through the forest. And, so he's off doing that, and Sally heads back home after she grabs more, nightshade and everything, which is just like an herb that grows in it's an herb or an ingredient that grows in the garden. I'm pretty sure they use nightshade somewhere in Harry Potter for something, and there's like witch hazel and like other stuff. And she gets back to the house or the lab, whatever, where she lives with the doctor, and he has to sew her arm back on, and he's it's like, you've snuck out 3 times, 2 times on me now. And she was like, 3 times. And I just love that. And we see that, and he is very possessive of her, as I said. And he sends her off, and she has to stay within the confines of like the tower, and like she cooks his meals and cleans and things like that. And what ends up happening is Jack has now been wandering all night long, and he's wandered into this grove of trees that have all these different shaped doors on them. One's a turkey, one's a heart, one's a pumpkin for jack-o'-lantern, one's a giant egg that kind of looks slightly demonic anyway for some reason to me. And there's a clover and like this other stuff, and then there's the tree shaped one, the Christmas tree one, and he's very drawn to that one. And he opens it, and he falls into the portal, and he ends up waking up falls into Christmastown or Christmas land. And he ends up then wandering around and seeing everything. And this is of course where we have the what's this song, which I just love also, because it's it's like this whole concept of him discovering all of these things about Christmas. It's like, there's nobody scared around here, people aren't screaming, they're having fun, there's there's no ghouls under the bed, and people are baking cookies and pies, and playing all this white stuff and snow. And he does like what everybody does. It's like picks up a pile of snow and goes, tries to eat it. And then he's just like wandering around the town. He like hides as a snowman, and he was like looking through windows, and holding the lights up to his eyes, which I love, and all this other fun stuff. And then he sees the silhouette of Santa Claus, or as he refers to him, Sandy Claus. And he sees that, and he's just like, oh, what's this? And he's like, Christmastown. And he's like, all very interested in that and everything. Whereas back at Halloweentown, it's now the next morning, and the mayor's shown up at Jack's house and is, trying to see if he's there. He's like, "Come on, Jack, I got the plans for next Halloween." And, I'm like, you got a whole year. Just give the man a break. And I get that that's your thing, but you can give the man a break. And, I mean, Santa supposedly plans all year round, but he's got to get all the toys ready and such. But we see lots of toys being made throughout the course of the kind of the what if, what's this song and everything. And the mayor is very worried because Jack's not answering his doorbell, and we get the mayor is two-faced because he's supposed to be like a two-faced politician, and one side is like the happy mayor, the other side is like the "oh no, something bad happened, I'm worried" type thing. And so he's sad about that, and he's like yelling at the house. He's like, "Come on, Jack, I'm only an elected official, I can't make decisions on my own." Which is hilarious if you ask me. And what ends up happening from there is, he finds out that Jack's gone, that there's this band that we always see playing around Halloweentown. It's like, "Jack left last night, he ain't come back yet." I apologize for whatever accent that was. And I apologize for that to whoever accent that sounded like. I apologize. It's like, Jack hasn't come back yet. And he's like, "But where is he?" And, so it's like, they're just all flummoxed and, worried and everything. And they send out search parties all over the place trying to find him. And, while they're doing all that and everything, Sally then ends up sneaking out. Sally hasn't snuck out again, but she's, just planning everything. And then, by the next morning, by later that afternoon, the mayor and everybody are just exhausted from trying to find Jack. And then Jack comes riding in on a snowmobile, a snow ski mobile. And he's got all this Christmas stuff and everything. He's like, "Mayor, I have our next plan. I need a town meeting tonight," and everything, and Sally sneaks out of her house again and everything after I love it how she tricks the doctor, because she puts a whole bunch of, nightshades, put him to sleep inside the soup that she's making, and she then has to use frog's breath to cover up the smell, and then she has to use a bunch of this other stuff to make it actually taste good and smell good so he won't notice the nightshade. And then she gives that to the doctor, and he's just like, "I'm not going to eat this until you eat it," type thing, because it's like, if it's poison, then you won't eat it, or I'll know that if it's poisoned if you fall asleep or whatever. And she's like, "Okay." And she tricks him, and she pulls out a spoon that has holes in it that she drilled or cut or whatever. And she pretends to drink, eat the soup and everything, and then he gobbles it up and he falls asleep, and she sneaks out. And then of course we have the town meeting. And Jack does this whole, the town meeting song, which, involves a bunch of the different, residents of Halloweentown, where he's trying, where he's giving them an explanation as to, what Christmas is, and showing them all this stuff. And, he's like, "This is a gift. It starts with a box, and you have ribbon around it." I was like, "What's in it?" And, they think it's all these horrible things. Is it the head I found in the lake? Is it this dead thing? And, it's like, no, it's just a box that you put a present in. And, all this other stuff that he's trying to explain about Christmas, and none of them are understanding it. And, Jack only has this limited understanding of what Christmas is anyway. And so he's trying to explain it to them, but it's not working. So he kind of sends them off, and we get this moment where it's Jack sitting in his room with all the Christmas stuff around him, and he's got Zero, and Zero has a candy cane, and he's reading all these different Christmas books. I'm pretty sure The Night Before Christmas is somewhere in there, and some of these other Christmas books. And he's just like, "How can I explain Christmas to them? How can I understand it myself?" And he has this book that's the scientific method and everything, and he's trying to figure out that. And he comes up with the idea of, "I just need to do some experiments." So he goes and he gets, stuff from the doctor for experimental purposes. And this is where we get the song kind of Jack's Obsession, which is where him, we kind of started a little bit with the people outside, but Jack's doing all these different experiments all over the place with, testing, a lollipop or not a lollipop, a candy cane, and because I got a bunch of candy canes up here too. It's testing candy canes, and testing, dissecting a teddy bear, and dissecting, trying to figure out how to do snowflakes, and just trying to figure out all this stuff. And so that's just kind of fun to watch him do that. And of course he's singing a little bit while he's doing it, because he doesn't understand. He's like, what does it mean, is what he's trying to figure out. And of course outside, everybody's like worried about Jack, and like, Sally's kind of been waiting, and like she ended up she made him, because like she saw or overheard him showing up at the doctor's house. And so she's like, oh, and like she obviously has like this crush on Jack, this big crush on Jack. He apparently knows who she is at some point, because he calls her by name without her having told him his name in the first place. And she like makes him this nice like care package basket, and she like lures it. She's like been locked up in the tower of like the mansion or so, or the building where the house where the doctor lives, and she like uses her sewing machine to like lower down like the food in the basket onto the ground, and then she then literally jumps out of the window and lands on the ground. And like, this whole concept of, she landed on the ground, therefore she's extremely hurt. And she's kind of come apart, but she like sits up and she like pulls the needle out of her head, and she's got like string in her pocket, and she like sews herself back together, sews her arm back together and her legs and everything back together. And then she, goes to where Jack is, and she uses, rope to like, send the basket up to him. And he gets that, and she gave him like this nice drink, which is, I'm assuming, some type of wine, and he like popped off the top, and out popped a butterfly, because Sally is very smart. She's also has a lot of common sense, a lot more common sense than some of the other people in this town, as is pointed out later. And, Jack kind of, he takes that as some encouragement and everything, and he ends up then, he decides that, oh, I'm going to make Christmas mine. And so he's like, I understand how this works. Or he kind of thinks he understands how it works. And he ends up, developing, he's like, okay, well, we're going to do Christmas our way. Or, turn Christmas and make it into something for us. And like that night, after Sally visited him or sent him the care package stuff, she ends up having a vision. She picks this flower, and she has this vision of like the flower turns into like a Christmas tree, and then it gets set on fire, bursts into flames. And, she's just like very, very worried about that, because she doesn't want Jack to be hurt, and she doesn't want something bad to happen. And so she's very worried. And the next day is, Jack is like, we're going to do Christmas our way. This year Christmas is ours. And so he ends up then, gathering up the people in town and starts, and signing them different things. It's like the band work on music, this do that. And, the doctor is like so angry because Sally snuck out again. And so he's like off looking for her, but like Jack has the doctor start working on this new project that he wants to do. He is supposed to make flying reindeer for Jack to use. And he's like, oh yeah, I can do that. So we get like throughout the course of the getting everything ready, the doctor works on that. But like then we get these three little terrors that show up that are Lock, Shock, and Barrel. And they are the mischievous children that are, one has like a devil's mask, one has like a skeleton mask, and one is dressed like a witch. Lock is one of the devil's masks. No. Barrel, I know, is one with the round mask. It's like a skeleton mask, but I can't remember which one is the other two. I think Lock is the one with the devil mask, and then Barrel, and then Shock is the one with the witch's mask. I think. I could be wrong on that, and I apologize if I'm wrong. I can't remember what order they introduced which ones are which. But like Jack tells them that he has a very specific job for them, and they are apparently the kind of what? What? We have dog. Up. Maybe not. He's like, Mommy, there's stuff on my bed. I need the window. I know, but you're fine. What? Up. He's like, no, I want the window. I just cannot get to window. There's too much stuff on the bed, Mom. I just cannot get window. Can you hop up? There we go. We got puppy. Hi, hi, hi. He's like, why did you make video? Why do you do this to me? And what ends up happening is, of course, Jack sends Lock, Shock, and Barrel off to go to kidnap the Sandy Claus. And I like what he does. I like, we get to see this new area where these guys live. They live with a man who is called Oogie Boogie, who is this kind of, he's of course the boogeyman. And, he's, this very evil, he's our villain for the movie to a degree. I mean, Jack to a degree is kind of like a villain, but he's also the hero of the movie simply because of the way that what happens with Christmas and such. But he's also the person that's supposed to learn the lesson, and Oogie Boogie is just obviously supposed to be the very obviously very bad person. And what happens is, Oogie, the three of them, sing the song, kidnap the Sandy Claus. And, they're all talking about, like, bury him for 90 years, see if he talks, do all this other stuff. And it's just, like, this very, like, listening to the lyrics is just very disturbing song. With, like, all these different ways to basically torture Santa Claus. And come up with all these different ways of, like, kidnapping him. And we kind of get this introduction of the Oogie Boogie Man. The Boogeyman. And he is not a nice character by any means. So we kind of get like a hinted introduction of that. And what ends up happening is, of course, Lock, Shock, and Barrel head off to go to find him. And Sally goes and talks to Jack. And Jack is telling her, oh, okay, well, here's what I need you to do. I need you to make my costume that I'm going to wear. And he puts a lot of trust in her with this. And she's like, but Jack, I don't think this is a good idea. I had this horrible vision with fire and everything. He's like, oh, that's not my Christmas. My Christmas doesn't have fire. And, he's like been giving everyone different things to do and, how to improve on different things for Christmas, which some of the things are interesting. Some of the things are like, okay, no. And what ends up happening is, of course, Lock, Shock, and Barrel show back up again, and they've kidnapped the Easter Bunny instead, which is just funny. And the Easter Bunny gets scared by where he is, and Jack is just like, take him back and apologize again. And he apologizes to the Easter Bunny. He's like, I'm so sorry. This was a misunderstanding. Take him home. And he at one point is trying to, scare them. He's like, type, thing to scare them and make them do what he wants them to do. And, sends them off again. And they eventually do end up kidnapping Santa Claus, of course. But what ends up happening is then, of course, they sing Kidnap the Santa Claus. And then we have the song Making Christmas, which is where we have all of the different characters in Halloweentown are, making, horror jack-in-the-boxes and disturbing other things that are going to be given to the children. And, I can think of several people that I actually like some of these things, but some of them I went to school with. But we see them making all of these different things, and it's like this song about one of them turns a dead rat into a hat, and all this other stuff that Jack is trying to explain to them what gifts can and can't be, and so they're singing that and having fun with that, and we see all of them working on Christmas, and Sally's working on making him his outfit. And, the doctor is working on making the flying skeleton reindeer, which I actually kind of like that concept. And they get ready and, Jack's, Sally gets Jack's suit on him and everything. And, it's just before Christmas. And they've got they have their Halloween countdown clock that they've turned into the Christmas countdown clock. And so we have all of that, and we keep intercutting between, making Christmas in between what happens in Halloweentown and what we actually see at the North Pole and in Christmastown, where, all of the different, we see the elves making, candy and toys and cookies and, getting everything wrapped and ready and getting the sleigh ready. And we, just suppose the images of, getting this ready and getting that ready and getting this ready and then getting everything ready between the two areas between Halloweentown and Christmastown. And, Lock, Shock, and Barrel show up and they trick Santa out of his house, and he's just, at one point he's just working through his, list of naughty and nice kids, and he's like, there have not been that many bad children this year. And I was like, you're about to meet 3 very bad children and a very, very naughty children in a minute. And, they end up kidnapping him and they drag him back to Halloweentown and they give him to Jack. And Jack is just like, Sandy Claus. Looks at his hands. You don't have claws at all. And, just like, I'm so happy to meet you. And I'm such a big fan. And you don't have to worry about Christmas at all this year. We're going to handle Christmas. And Santa's like, excuse me? First of all, who are you? Second of all, where am I? And like, nobody's listening to Santa. And nobody's listening to Santa. And what ends up happening is, it's just like all this fun, Jack takes Santa's hat and he uses that. And like he sends, the kids off to make sure that Santa's comfortable and they take him to, Oogie Boogie's place. And, they send, Santa down like this, tube system that they use to, send food to the boogeyman down to where the Oogie Boogie's lair is. And this is where we fully meet the boogeyman and we get the boogeyman's song, the Oogie Boogie song. And, we see that he has this, he's this gambling addict boogeyman who's plotting to play a game with Santa's life at stake. And, he, ties Santa up and he's, got this disturbing roulette board and everything that he's using and, dice and all this other stuff that he's using to just like torture Santa. And like Santa's just like, oh my God, how did I get myself into this mess? I feel so sorry for Santa. And, Jack gets ready to head out on his trip, on his, Halloween, night or on Christmas Eve run. And what ends up happening is Sally decides that she's going to try to stop him. So she tries to, she uses this like, for some reason there's fog juice and I don't know why, but there's fog juice. And she uses that to like fill the town square in Halloweentown with like this huge amount of fog. And this is where we just get like this, slight reference to Rudolph because she like does that. And then like, just like the reindeer can't see an inch in front of their noses and like all this other stuff. And it's like Zero that like, Jackson was like, oh, Christmas is not going to happen. And everybody's sad. And then Zero shows up and he's got his nose glowing. And Jack's like, okay, I can work with this. And like they head off and Sally's just like, God. Sally's just like, why do I keep doing this to myself? And, Jack flies off and everybody's happy and they're going to like listen in on like a radio network, I guess, to like listen in on what's happening. And Sally is just kind of very sad and she has her song that's kind of just like her lamenting over, Jackson, Jack might be in trouble and this is not a good idea and, all this other stuff. And then, Jack's off flying around and delivering presents and, there's like a demonic wreath. No, there's a disturbing like a duck toy and there's like a vampire teddy bear. First off, I kind of like the vampire teddy bear. And there is actually a Build-A-Bear of it, which when I pointed that out to my dad, he's like, why does that not surprise me? And I'm like, it shouldn't. It should also not surprise you that I want one. I know you can just like buy them too, but like I like the vampire teddy bear. They're fun. And it's like there's this giant snake and evil jack-o'-lantern, Jack in the Boxes, which jack-o'-lantern in a box, which I like. And so we get all of that, and like we see all these kids and families just like being tortured by all of these presents as Jack is flying around and everything. And then it's like they're all calling in police reports, and the police is like, you're being attacked by Christmas toys? That's the second call we've had. And like, then it's like it's all over the news. And I was like, there's a strange skinny person impersonating Santa and going to people's homes and leaving disturbing gifts behind. And like some kids get like a shrunken head in a box. And I'm like, yeah, no, that qualifies as not good for Christmas, depending on who you are. Admittedly, I have some friends from high school that probably wouldn't mind a shrunken head in a box for Christmas, but they also wouldn't mind some of these other things as well. But I don't think that you want to give your small child a shrunken head in a box. You also don't want a giant snake that is going to devour your tree, and you do not want demonic presents that are going to try to hurt you and your family. That's where the bad stuff is. Having things that just kind of look disturbing or look cute but are creepy is also fine too. Those are fine. Some of those things I would be fine with, but then there's other things where it's just like, oh my God, why? And so it's like everybody in Halloweentown is like listening in on like this news report that's going on. And Sally realizes that something very bad is going to happen. So she's like, oh God, where did they take that Sandy Claus? And she like runs off to go to find where the lock, shock, and barrel took Santa. And so she makes her way to the Oogie Boogie's place, and she tries to, she gets inside, and she's, trying to help get Santa out of there, and she's like distracting Oogie Boogie because she can, pull herself apart. So she's, using like one of her legs to like distract Oogie Boogie while she, uses her hands to like jump down and like untie Santa and try to get him out of there and everything. She's trying to save him. And, Santa's appreciative of this, but unfortunately he gets, Oogie Boogie catches Sally and catches Santa and, ends up doing all of that. And he, ties them both up, and he's going to, lure them to like this giant oozing vat of something very, very hot to like kill them. That's his plan. And out in the real world, of course, or out in our world, I guess, Jack is, still flying around, but then he starts getting attacked. They start sending missiles at him and blast his sleigh out of the sky. And he thinks that they're fireworks. Then he realizes that they're actually aiming for him and the sleigh, and for him and Zero and such. And, he gets knocked out of the sky, and, he's presumed dead, and everybody in Halloweentown thinks that he's dead. So they're just, very, very sad and disturbed and just upset about this and everything. So they're doing that, and, everybody, all the, like the newscasters are like, well, the fake Santa has been taken down, but still no sign of the real one. So what will happen to Christmas? And, so, we get that moment, and then, we cut to the graveyard where Jack landed, and we see him being held basically in the arms of an angel that like caught him. Which I'm just like, yep, let's go for the metaphorical imagery here. That's fine. And they kept, Jack safe, and, he survived. And then we get his song, Poor Jack, and it's, him just, oh my God, what, all this other stuff, it's like, but I wanted Christmas and I wanted this, but now I know who I am. I am the Pumpkin King, and I'm going to embrace that identity and all this stuff. And he's like, now I have to go and set things straight. And he, climbs back through, because apparently all graveyards have a portal to the graveyard in Halloweentown, because he opens a grave, and then he goes through it, and then he closes it, and he comes back out in like Halloweentown. So like, apparently they're all connected. And he comes out, and he starts running toward Oogie Boogie's place. And Oogie Boogie has had Sally and Santa, tied up, and he's, getting ready to, drop them in this giant vat of something. And, he's getting, he's, using his dice to determine when he, gets to knock them in and everything. Just before they're about to get knocked in is when Jack shows up and like frees them. And then him and Oogie Boogie have this standoff, and then this kind of like battle of, Pumpkin King versus Boogeyman, and so they're doing all of that and everything, and Oogie Boogie is like activating like all these different things that he has around his roulette table dungeon type thing, and Jack is hopping around from things, and Oogie Boogie ends up having like a string that gets loose. So Jack ends up grabbing that string, and it gets, ripping it, and it shows that, it starts unraveling Oogie Boogie, and then eventually he just gets unraveled because Jack like ties it up on something, and it spins, and it, unravels Oogie Boogie and reveals that he's nothing but like crawling insects inside, which is disturbing. And, it's just disturbing. And then they like fall apart, and they fall into like the boiling vat of ooze or whatever. And he's done. Oogie Boogie's done. And then the mayor shows up with, first Jack and Sally and Santa. Jack apologizes to Santa and gives his hat back. And, Santa's just like, let me guess, Christmas wasn't as easy as you thought it would be. And you should listen to her more. She's the only one in this insane asylum that makes any sense. And he just like, Santa flies off, heads off, touches the finger to his side of the nose and like flies off. And, and then we get this montage of like him, it's like the news reporter. Now we have Santa appearing all around the world at breakneck speed, taking away all the horrible toys and things, and, giving people like their actual toys that they're supposed to get, dolls or puppies or, whatever, that they're supposed to get. And like we see all of that. And so that's kind of fun. And, Jack and Sally end up kind of talking to each other. And he's just like, why did you come here to get Santa? She's like, I wanted to help you. And so we get that moment and everything. And, he's like, I thank you for that. And, and that's when like the mayor and Lock, Shock, and Barrel show up and they help Sally and Jack get out of the dungeon area. And they get back to town and, everybody's just like so happy that Jack is alive. And, it's like Christmas morning and, they're just happy that Jack and Sally are okay and that apparently Christmas is okay. And, Santa, then, kind of sends a gift to Halloweentown and he makes it snow. And, what ends up happening, ends up making it snow all over Halloweentown. And, so we see like the vampires skating on like the lake, which I find hilarious. And, the kids are having snowball fights and, all this fun stuff and, getting to interact with like snow for the first time. So they're happy. And then, Sally kind of wanders off toward the graveyard again. And, Jack kind of spies on her as she's singing again. Again, we've got like the snow on the curly mountain, on the curly hill with the moon in the background. And then, of course, we just get like the final reprise of stuff, which is just, everybody singing again about, kind of Christmas and Halloween. And Jack's like, I've got so many new ideas to do for next Halloween and it's going to be better than ever. And, Jack and Sally then end up, having their, my dearest friend, I would like to stand beside you type of a thing. And, so we get them standing on top of the curly hill together in the full moon. And, and they kiss. So we get like the whole happy ending, which I love. I love Jack and Sally. They're one of my favorite couples for Disney. I may have to do like a Disney couple ranking at some point, but for like big Disney movie couples, they're definitely one of my favorites. And, so that's like the end of the movie. And, we see Zero there and he's happy that, Jack's finally happy. Now we get into the cast list. So, we have Chris Sarandon as Jack Skellington. And we have Danny Elfman, who is also the film's composer, of course, provides Jack's singing voice. I believe he also provides the voice for Barrel in Lock, Shock, and Barrel. Then we have Catherine O'Hara as Sally Finkelstein. Sorry, Finkelstein is the doctor's last name. I could not remember what his last name was. We have her, and she is also the voice of Shock, so she's the female out of the triplets. And she also previously worked with Tim Burton. Catherine O'Hara worked with him on Beetlejuice. So, fun there. Then we have William Hitchie as Dr. Finkelstein. And throughout the course of the movie, we also see like the doctor has been like working on like making himself a new, I guess, girlfriend, wife, mate, whatever you want to go with. And he like puts half of his brain inside of the body, and it's basically like she looks like him, except she can stand up and is taller. And he like calls her Jewel, so we get that, and he makes her, and she's revealed at the end of the movie. And he's this mad scientist and everything. And then of course we have Glenn Shaddix as the mayor of Halloweentown. He has, of course, this happy, sad face and everything. And, jump back and forth type of a thing that pops up. We have Ken Page as Oogie Boogie. We have Ed Ivory as Santa Claus. We have Paul Rubens as Locke. And, of course, Paul Rubens is, of course, from Pee-wee's Playhouse. And, Tim Burton also, and he worked with Tim Burton on Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Batman Returns. We do have Greg Proops as a couple of different, like Greg Proops from Whose Line Is It Anyway? If you want to look him up, he's very funny. He was the devil and the Harley Quinn demon and a few of the other demons that are around and such. And in regards to a few other things, there's, a few other people that make, have featured voices as different characters. And then we have Patrick Stewart, who recorded narration for a prologue and epilogue. While not used in the final film, it is included on the soundtrack. I do think I have the soundtrack somewhere around here, but it's probably buried on my CD stand downstairs. So we have that, and then we have Nightmare Before Christmas in a few other areas. So first we have Nightmare Before Christmas in Kingdom Hearts. And I love, love, love running around in Halloweentown in Kingdom Hearts. It's so fun, and it just works perfectly because like so many of the different Heartless that run around in Kingdom Hearts look like they could come from Halloweentown. And like the ones that they have in Halloweentown are just perfect. They're like dancing mummies and some other things, and it's so fun, and I love it. And like what ends up happening is that when Sora, Donald, and Goofy land in Halloweentown, they get transformed into something else. Sora gets transformed into like a vampire. Donald gets transformed into like a mummy, and then Goofy just is, I don't know exactly what Goofy gets transformed into, but he gets transformed into something. And because they kind of need to blend in, it's like when they go to the Little Mermaid area, when they go to Atlantica, you know, it's like Sora is a mermaid and Donald is like a squid and Goofy is a turtle. And, you know, it's like this, all this other stuff that we get to see from them when they get transformed in different areas, which is just fun. And, you know, so we see them, and so they land in Halloweentown, and they see that Jack Skellington is trying to use some of the Heartless in like a performance that he wants to use for Halloween. And, you know, they end up finding out that, you know, Dr. Finkelstein is trying to, you know, find a way to give the Heartless a heart and make them more terrifying, which Sora, Donald, and Goofy do not want. But Sora's kind of interested to see what'll happen. Kingdom Hearts has actually had Halloweentown featured in it in several video games, and the first one takes place in just Kingdom Hearts, the original game. And I think they got a fair amount of people to come back and voice the different characters for it, which I just love that concept of it. Just like, yeah, I'll come back and play the character again. And, you know, so we see that, and, you know, you still have to fight all the different Heartless, and, you know, at some point, you know, like, Jack kind of is Jack is the character that kind of joins your party for that time frame. You can swap him out for either Donald or Goofy, depending on certain circumstances and where you're going, and he's quite useful, and he's fun to fight with, so you get to run around with that, and you see Jack, and you see Sally, and you see Zero, and you see Finkelstein, and you see, you know, you see the mayor. And, you know, so you're running around Halloweentown, and you see Lock, Shock, and Barrel, and, you know, you have to end up going to then, like, to Oogie Boogie's manor, and he's the final boss fight in the area because he's actually working with Maleficent and, like, all the other Disney villains and such that are there, which I love. And I think Tim Burton was like, oh, yeah, go ahead and put them in the game. I love that idea. I think was one of the things that happened with that. But like, you know, the you know, Oogie Boogie, you know, the doctor had been developing like this a heart to put inside the Heartless to see if it would work, and I don't remember if it works or not, but it makes like the Heartless go like crazy or something, because they're not supposed to have hearts. That's why they're called Heartless. And what ends up happening is, of course, you know, they have to fight Oogie Boogie. And you have to like run around his tower at various points in time when you're fighting him. And you fight him in his like roulette wheel area. And like not only are you fighting him, you also have to work on like avoiding, like, because like the platform moves. There's dice that explode. There's things that fire guns at you that you can't really dodge that well. And you have to like aim at that stuff, and then you have to like hit it, you know, aim at Boogie when he's in the right area. And, you know, that's just a whole fun thing to try to fight him. Not. Actually, I mean, like, once you get it down, it's a lot easier to do. I think it probably took me like 2 or 3 times to actually beat him the first time, but I did eventually beat him, obviously. But I mean, like, yes, you have fun with that, and it's just fun just being, you know, dressed up. Like, Sora just gets dressed up and like as a vampire and everything, and that's just fun. And, you know, Jack and Sally are, of course, happy by it. I don't think Santa Claus appears in the first Halloweentown area where you go in Kingdom Hearts in the first one. I don't think Santa appears in that. Or if he does, it's a very brief thing. I think they make a reference to it because, like, Jack is trying to make, like, Halloween better. I don't remember exactly. But like, so I think there is a reference to it in there somewhere. I don't 100% remember if that's one of the ones that completely follows the movie. But when you're running around in Halloweentown, it's so fun because you run around in like the Skellington Square, and you run around like by the Pumpkin Hill and by the Curly Hill, and the graveyard and everything. And like those are just fun to run around in. And I just loved how they like it. It's just like wonderfully done for the way that it's animated for that. And then the second game that Halloweentown appears in is Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, which is basically just a slight retelling of the original one, but it's more of like a different type of battle-based system. There's like cards involved that you have to use, and you have to build a deck, and you run around the different areas. It is still kind of fun, but it's not as interactive with certain things. I mean, like the other characters are still there, and I do think you still get like changed back into your monster forms. Possibly, I don't remember, but so you got to run around there and everything. And then the other one is Kingdom Hearts 385 over 2 days, which is just it's another mess up thing in regards to Kingdom Hearts, because there's various things that happen. It's like Sora loses his memories at various points in time in Kingdom Hearts, and there's other characters, and they end up interacting in interacting with like Kingdom Hearts characters, and interacting with, Jack and Sally and all of that stuff. So we have some of that things that you run around in, and like the Curly Hill, and a bunch of this other stuff that you interact with where you see that. And then the other main thing that they pop up in for Kingdom Hearts is Kingdom Hearts 2. Where Sora, Donald, and Goofy again return to Halloweentown, and this time it has been decorated for Christmas, and they run into Jack, who appoints them to act as bodyguards so he can bring Sandy Claus to see all his work. I don't remember exactly. It's been like at least 2-3 years since I played through that section of the game. But I think that what it is, I think it takes place like kind of after the movie-ish, and like Sora even tells Jack, "Are you trying to steal Christmas again?" And he's like, "No, I'm not trying to steal Christmas. I'm just trying to show Santa that I know how to do Christmas just because I wanted to. I'm not trying to take it from me. I learned my lesson last time," type of a thing. And, so your job is to act as like a bodyguard for Santa, and like you have to deal with Maleficent, and she has Lock, Shock, and Barrel working for her, and tries to make them destroy Christmas Town. And, just all that fun stuff. It's like, well, if you destroy Christmas Town, you destroy, like, the center of joy in this world. So you, like, run around in that, and you do help Santa, and you fight against different Heartless, of course, in different areas. And you have to, help Santa and, stop Oogie Boogie again, and fight I don't think you fight Maleficent in that world, but you do fight Oogie Boogie again in different areas, and you see more of Christmas Town. And you see like the elves in Christmas Town, and you see like the packing area, and you run around there and such. And when you're in Christmas Town as Sora, Donald, and Goofy, your outfits change again. Sora is still a vampire, but he has been changed into like a Christmas themed vampire. So he's still like the grayish black colors, but it's like a Christmas outfit with like the white trim, and he's still a vampire. Goofy gets turned into like a weird reindeer thing. And then Donald gets turned into like a weird snowman, which I just find weird. And, you fight around there, and you fight through the different Heartless that are there, and through in Halloweentown again. And I think Sally's in the second one as well. And, so you have fun messing with them, and fighting against the different Heartless that are there. I was actually really fun to like go back and like I don't remember if it was Kingdom Hearts 1 or Kingdom Hearts 2, but like you go back to like the same area again and again for Oogie Boogie's mansion, and you fight against like this thing that's called the Chimera, which is like just like hodgepodge thing of a Heartless. And it's actually a really good way of like getting a bunch of XP. And like, there's fun other like zombie mummy type Heartless that you fight against and everything. At some point I might just like go through and like talk, like just do like these are some of my favorite Heartless from Kingdom Hearts, but that'll be like a little ways down the line. So we get to see a lot of that with like Jack and Santa actually kind of working together, and I think Santa actually asked Jack to like help him with like delivering delivering the presents, excuse me. Yes, Santa chooses the president. But well, I don't know. But what ends up happening is, of course, Jack and Sally are, of course, very happy, and they have like this romantic moment in like the end credits and the snow and everything. And Donald and Goofy and Sora, are just having fun, and just like different things like that. So I like how they run around those areas in Kingdom Hearts, and I just love those sections in those games. They're just so fun to run around in, and like the costume changes are really fun. But the last little bits that I wanted to talk about are, of course, development, of course, obviously, of the movie is, of course, it was developed by Tim Burton, and it's stop motion animation, so they have to make all of these different characters and props and sets that they have to use, like be able to hop in and out of and like move around and get into, and all this other stuff that you have to work with, and planning out the wazoo when it comes to it. And Tim Burton had the idea for a long time, and it's kind of this combination of like How the Grinch Stole Christmas and A Night Before Christmas, and all this other stuff. And there is like Tim Burton, I think, does have like an actual book of like The Nightmare Before Christmas that he wrote. And I think on the DVD or the Blu-ray, it's like read by Christopher Lee, of course, and like some of this other stuff. So it's just like really fun that way. And I don't think I have the book at all. I don't think I have the book for The Nightmare Before Christmas. I might, but I don't remember where it is, if I had it or not. But so we have all of that stuff, and like it's all this development and character development and design and style and building and crafting, and of course, and I love stop motion animation movies. I mentioned this with The Corpse Bride. I just love all that all of that. It's a big job for the people who animated, of course, but I love the end result of it. Because as I said, it's like I love Rankin and Bass stuff for the stop motion animation. I love Kingdom Hearts. Well, I love Kingdom Hearts, but that's not stop motion animation. I love The Nightmare Before Christmas and The Corpse Bride, and I love that type of animation that goes along with that. But the other thing that I wanted to mention, and I did not know this until I watched the bonus features on the Blu-ray, is that down in the Disney World or Disneyland, or both, I'm not sure which, but where they have the Haunted Mansion. And at Disneyland, of course, they have the they have the Happy Holidays, of course, for between Christmas and around Christmas and New Year's and December and all of that. But at the Haunted Mansion, they turned that into the Merry, Scary Christmas area for Jack Skellington, where it's like Jack Skellington and like all the characters from like Halloweentown and such took over the mansion. And I want to go see it because they enhance different things, and it's so fun to look at everything, and like they spread everything out all over the place, and it's so fun, and I so want to go see that at some point. I would love to go and see that at the Haunted Mansion for Christmas, and it looks so fun, and like they put so much care into it in regards to like determining what's everything going to be and where is it going to be and how are you going to do different things, and using certain parts that's already there, and it's just so fun. And I would love to go and see it. But I do believe that is all I have to talk about for The Nightmare Before Christmas. And of course, this is going up on Halloween itself for the way that I planned it. So then the last two videos that she'll be coming out for this are for like the Halloween / stuff are just going to be, the last two videos are going to be about Dia de Muertos. The one that is going to come out on November 1st, so tomorrow from when you're seeing this, is going to be a review of the movie The Book of Life. And then the video on the next day, on Tuesday, is going to be a Straw Hat Dia de Muertos video. And I will explain that when I get to said video. So that's what we have for that. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you go and watch Nightmare Before Christmas if you haven't done that yet, because it's a great movie and I love it, and I'm sure that you do too if you're kind of watching this review anyway. So I thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and happy Halloween.
Fear and doubt are signs of a strong heart. They push your heart, strike out in new directions. Without them, your zest for life might fade, as would your taste for fear. And believe me, that would really ruin my fun.